How good are you when it comes to change? How resilient are you? How eager are you to actually say, let's go do it? Or are you someone like change? You know what? That's for someone else. But what if, in order to achieve your dreams or your goals, you have to change? What if, due to circumstances beyond your control, you have to change? Well, this month has been about change. Brendan Burchard, one of my role models, actually talked about it. He said, do some research on change, read some books, and learn how to manage chaos. It was like, oh, that sounds like a good theme. And before I knew it, everything went haywire this month. And it started out with being confronted with codes I needed from a professional organization in order to get an invoice paid. I'm almost there. I almost got the codes, so then I'm good to go. And it finished with my change challenge, basically. So this is the fifth day of the change challenge. Well, actually, later on, I'm going to record a separate recording for the change challenge. And it's the first time that I actually decided I'm not going to go live during the training. That's new for me. What that also implied was that instead of going to go live during the training, I wanted to go live on social media the same day, but not as part of the training, but to talk about the training, to talk about the behind the scenes. Now, I can tell you that never happened. There was so much involved with just recording the training. And why is that? Because I recently raised the bar for myself a little bit. I got to see how certain programs, like this one, for instance. So this is StreamYard, and StreamYard can generate shorts. It doesn't always do it, but most of the time it generates shorts, which is kind of cool. And then immediately it also writes down captions on top of the shorts. So of course that's very nice. And lately, when it comes to Instagram posts and shorts, I also have been using captions. Now, when it comes to 1 minute videos, of course, peanuts. 5 minutes, doable. 10 minutes, but the training is most often like 30 minutes. And I've started doing it on the Friday Night Lives as well, which are an hour. And that takes time because it's checking if everything that's in there is actually correct. And then, so most of the time I do need to read everything. So I have to literally go back through that hour. Then there's the rendering process. And usually it does not accept an hour. Well, actually, the captions don't even accept an hour. So I have to split it up into sometimes 3 or 4 parts in able to actually be able to render it. So it's going through the process of getting the original one, then adding something to it, and then there's a new video. So that's the whole rendering process. Now, apart from that, straight after it goes through a filter, I like to make it a little bit with a vintage feel. So you should be able to recognize what my videos are. So usually I edit them with that vintage feel. Then quite often I do also add the pinup, which you see on the left bottom side. The left bottom corner, I actually didn't create that one. Someone else did it for me. She's no longer around, but it's very precious to me. So it's for me like some kind of brand. Well, it is my brand. But people can recognize, oh, that's from Lady Lexy, so that's good. And then with some bad luck, I have to put it all together again, so go to a different program. That program really eats everything when it comes to storage. So then at some point, I need to get rid of the app, get it back again, and then all the storage has been released again. So all the cache memory has been cleared. So yeah, there is a lot of work involved. And this the past couple of weeks, I said, for the Monday motivational messages, I want to do those on Sunday. Why? Because every time I do it on Monday, I go to sleep at a very late hour, very early in the morning, depends on how you want to look at it. And that has consequences for the day after, for what I want to do. Now, the idea was nice, but then I also had the change challenge, and it worked when I was able to work ahead of time. Of course, doing both the Monday motivational messages and the change challenge on the same day, that was a little bit problematic. Although I had worked ahead of time, so that was good. And then at some point, the fatigue got to me, and which meant that I still needed to record, but at some point I skipped one day and I actually had to do two recordings the next day. And that was a little bit like, okay, that's not what I had planned. So things were a little bit more complicated than I had expected. Also, I was under the impression that I by now know Kajabi good enough to actually get the stuff out there the way that I envision it. Well, think again. And actually, I used that as an example of how to push through and how to visualize that I'm actually getting there. The whole goal of the visualization and using affirmations is to push through, literally, to get into action. So by seeing the outcome, it motivates me to say, okay, let's go do it. So during the change challenge, I also talked about the using the role model, seeing the future outcome, how this is going to help me and help others. So that meant writing down, like, okay, what does it look like? And how can I make it fun? There were a lot of elements which are linked to making something come true. And especially when it's kind of new, and we're talking about change. So, change as in it's not known yet, or it's not something we do every day. So, it's so important to not give in to, I don't know anymore. I've tried so many hours. All in all, we don't want to give in to negativity. We don't want to give in to disappointment. We want to be focused on the why. And that's what I kept talking about in the last week. So I've been talking about how to deal with the change. So the mere fact that maybe for some reason you are all of a sudden exposed to change, like I was with that code. It literally it brought me back in time, and then I had to think about, but is this what I want? Do I want to go back in time? How's that going to help me in the future? That was the most important question. And I literally had no clue how that was going to work out. And the cool thing is that I actually ended up with an organization, a professional organization, which first of all is close to me, which is new. And second of all, I know those people. We've met before multiple times, so that's good. And third of all, they have been able to do something that I didn't think was possible again, which was they somehow got the health insurance companies to say, yeah, we pay for it. And I'm like, what? You scratched it, right? Years ago? It's not a lot of money, but it's something, which is always, it gives me a good feeling. Now, the fourth aspect is that I'm thinking about picking up training again and also seeing how the training that I'm teaching others about mindsets, but also about neurodivergency and how to incorporate that in businesses, maybe something I can teach to other therapists. It's a relatively new topic. It's been out there for a couple of years, and of course, we know a lot of stuff when it comes to people who are hypersensitive, and when there is sensory input, they're easily overwhelmed. We also know a lot about people who are on the spectrum dealing with ADHD. I'm just going to say inclusion, but the term neurodivergence and how to incorporate that on your job, and that's why I said also in businesses, that's, I think, something relatively new. I love it. I think it's very interesting. I know a lot of people who are neurodivergent. I'm one of those. And the thing is that when you run into other neurodivergents, it's like a community that recognizes one another. So the norm, and that's not the same as normal, but most of the people out there are neurotypical. So they see certain things and they look at it in a certain way. And to give you an example, I think it's one of the best ones. So we have those pies out here. We call them fly. And it's I think it's typical Dutch, maybe it's even Belgian, I don't know. It's from the south of the country, Limburgse fly. So, yeah, from the south. So, Belgium is on the one end, there's the south of Netherlands, and then on the other side of the border is Belgium. So, we use that or we buy it when someone is having his or her birthday or their birthday nowadays. And so it's a nice treat. And usually you can get a couple of slices from one flavor and then a couple of slices from the other flavor. And so you combine things. So I think I sometimes have bought like 3 pies in total, you know, to to treat everyone, because that's what we do. When we have our birthday, we treat other people. I understand that's actually not the norm. It was something which was pointed out to me on Instagram. Here in the Netherlands, we treat other people when it's our birthday. And I was like, yeah, that's true. At school, we do so. At work, we do so. So, yes, that's true. And I have no clue what it's like in other countries. Of course, when it comes to being with friends and families and having birthday parties, of course, then you cater to. But then they also bring gifts, so that's nice. So usually at work, they would buy like a big card or something and, sign it all. And those were good times too. Now, getting back to the pie, which we call fly, my the daughter of a friend of mine who is among the creatively gifted, so also neurodivergent, she got this mathematics. She had to do this sum. I think you call it a sum. Some words are so unfamiliar for me because I usually don't have to use them. But I guess, so the calculation, let's put it that way. And she's almost 10 years old, but she's a very smart cookie. And so there's apparently something which is called automation. And basically, that has to do with repeat, 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 repeat. And then at some point, it's in your brain. Hopefully, for you not to forget. So if I think about German, then Ausarbeit nach Zeit von zu. That's one of those rows which had to do with the third something it's called, which had to do with how you actually um, finish certain words. So now she got the question, here's a pie, and they said it's one piece of pie, and it's 8.50. So you could say it's about $8.50. Now, as adults, we know the moment that you hear the amount $8.50, oh, they mean the entire pie. They don't mean a slice. When they talk about the piece, we talk about the entire pie. But of course, she doesn't know that yet. I mean, she is not even 10 years old. So how would she know how much a pie is costing, right? So then they say, okay, so if one piece of pie is 8.50, then how much is 1.5 pie? And she said, Mom, how many pieces are in a pie? Well, basically, I think there usually are like 12 pieces of you can get out of that pie. But 12 pieces times 8.50, of course, that would be very expensive. But yeah, I get it that she didn't understand that. So she said, I cannot fix it. I mean, doing 8.50 times 1.5, that's something she can do. But trying to figure out, but how many slices are in there? Ooh, that was a different story. But it shows how the creative gifted are thinking. They try to look at things from so many directions. And I recognize so much of myself in those stories. And that's one of the reasons that I can get along with my friends so good, because we understand one another. We talk about certain things on a certain level. And where I used to be in IT, she now is in IT. But there are so many things when we talk about people, about communication, about why people react the way they do. And so we stimulate one another. So she helps me push through things, especially when it comes to posting things on LinkedIn, and also challenge me, make it more visual, because that's easier. And I agree with her, but it takes more time. So I do have worksheets which are extremely visual. So you literally see like a book or a notebook or pencil or arrows or smileys, and a limited amount of text. So basically, just by looking at the pictures, you can already see what the story is about. It's one of the things that I use when it comes to transformation from negative to positive. Then I literally show you a notebook, write on the left side what's negative, write on the right side what's positive, transform it. So I give all these clues how you can improve it, and then take the scissors. So you literally see the scissors, so you can cut it, and then only what's left is the positive side. So getting back to the whole neurodivergence and also the creative people, the creatively gifted, we think a little bit different. And it's the one thing that I actually ran into again and again and again and again at work, but also when I went to the Academy of Arts. because what's normal for other people was like, but what do they want from me? What are they asking? I don't know. When working with a lot of people on the spectrum, I've noticed that when questions or assignments are to be interpreted in multiple ways, well, working with people from the spectrum or neurodivergence or the creatively gifted, they react in a certain way like, okay, so which one do you mean? And then when they don't get an answer because the most people they think in the other way where they only see like one solution because, well, that makes sense, right? Wrong. For them it makes sense, so for the majority it makes sense. And because they don't know any better, they are not capable of placing themselves in the line of thinking that the other ones have, which is very problematic when you're a teacher at school and then a kid says to you, but what exactly do you mean? And then you're getting called out for being stupid and all those kind of things, which I believe you never should say to a kid. Because what's the one thing that the kid doesn't do anymore? It won't ask questions anymore, which of course is not good. Influences everything, the energy, the mood, but also the whole learning process. So I think it's very interesting to see how things are changing and how they get a better understanding of what's going on. And I can only endorse that, promote that, and recognizing so much about what's going on. I feel so passionate about, okay, let me help out those who are running into the walls of people who are neurotypical because they are like, why don't you do what I asked? Yeah, but what did you ask? Because. And I totally get it. So when it comes to my passion and the legacy I want to leave behind, well, that has to do with speaking up, speaking out, sharing your story, but it primarily has to do with being understood, as in clarity. Be specific, ask on if you don't know what the other one means, explain what's going on in your mind if the other one doesn't understand what you're talking about. So there's a mutual understanding, but all done with mutual respect for one another. And that part, that's the hard part. So I'm very passionate about the whole thing, like I said. And now getting back to the whole change aspect, of course, talking about change, I was also thinking about this aspect. So the last couple of months, I've been talking about influence, the influence we have on ourselves, the influence that others have on us. And actually, this was an aspect that I also talked about. So for me, influence and change are not um, that far. Well, they're close to one another when it comes to topic. I mean, there's certain overlap between the two. So a lot of influence has to do, of course, with change. I mean, if you are being influenced, you are changing things. And if you want to be like the one who is your role model, who influences you, or you want to be like that person, then of course you need to change too and you need to learn new skills. So for me, talking about change, at first I was like, it's a different topic. And then I was like, well, actually, it's not. But then I ran into all those things, which actually required a lot of energy and it required me to push through. Okay, so one of the things that totally went haywire was, like I said, when I would fall asleep. And well, with this medical condition that I've got, I tend to fall asleep quickly. So usually somewhere between 4 to 6 hours, then I'm done and I fall asleep. Sometimes there are exceptions, and when there are exceptions, I'm like, oh yes, that's nice. I'm keeping on going, and it's nice to keep on going, except for that moment that all of a sudden that switch flips, and then okay, it's done. And if I still need to do certain things, then of course that has its consequences. So this week I really learned, and I talked about this too, to not postpone what I can do now. It's something that ever since I started posting on Instagram every day, which is now 183 days, I think, in a row. Um, so yeah, we're talking about over half a year, right? That's cool. But yes, doing that meant also posting it, preferably before I would fall asleep. But it happens quite often that I actually, at some point, come here in the space where I actually want to work, and then I'm too tired, so I just sleep first, a couple of hours, and then I go on again. So the good news is I can summon the energy when I go live. I can talk about things. I can really get there. I just can't do it for too long. And for instance, when I have a group coaching training and prior to it, I'm coaching someone, and after it, I'm coaching someone too, and I'm already tired, then at some point, that switch wants to flip. And I showed it to someone today, and you actually can see how my eyes are getting incongruent, and you can literally see how my eyes start to roll back. And I try to do everything to prevent it so people won't see it. But I do believe that whenever it happens, even if it's for a split second, people pick up on it. So I usually tell them ahead of time, I need to keep this short. Now, of course, being the coach, it's up to me to tell them we are going to stop now. But yeah, being who I am, that's still a little bit of a challenge to actually say, okay, now it's done. Because I'm one of those people, when I'm doing something, then I'm so absorbed in it, which is also the reason why it's hard for me to be in time for the next thing, because it's hard for me to say, got done. So yeah, I've got still a lot of things to learn in this lifetime, but understanding it's already winning half the battle. And I'm beginning to understand, being a neurodivergent, also dealing with ADHD, that I'm not the only one who has a problem with quitting. Now, getting back to all the things that I talked about, I wrote a number of things down, like here. There is going to be a day 5 because it's Friday, which means that I am going to talk about giving myself grace, or giving yourself grace, including one step at a time. That's what I didn't talk about just yet. Um, I talked with you about one day, I talked about pushing through, and the response I got was that it actually it was confrontational for the ones who watched it. I didn't expect that straight away. But I do realize that when I talked about pushing through, that I said, if you quit, then are you clear on your why? So, first of all, you want to figure out what's stopping you. Is it a lack of energy? Is it because there is no time anymore during the day? Are the people around you asking you to do certain things? Are you even motivated enough? And that's why I said, what's your why? Oh, that's nice. I see that Cheeky Joe is there. I know she's somewhere else. So what's she saying? Hi, I'm watching. I might go on and off because of connection in the hospital. Yeah, hospital are usually dramatic. Well, I'll just tell you, I'm halfway. So I've been going live for half an hour now, and I've been talking about the change challenge and what that has meant to me and what I'm still going to do. So when I said why, what's happening that you start doing something and then at some point you don't follow through, and apparently that part was very confrontational because I talk a lot about your dreams, the reason why you want to do it. So I talked a little bit just earlier about wanting to leave a legacy, as in learning people how to speak up and speak out, sharing their story, being seen, heard, understood, respected, valued, and especially when I'm talking about neurodivergence. And I'm not sure if Cheeky Joe is following me now because we haven't been doing a lot of lives lately, and I have been talking a lot about it. But those are the people who are, well, I'm pretty sure that your daughter is one. Call me anything. That's for certain. So those are the visual learners, creatively gifted, the ones who look at things from different points of view. And she knows what I'm talking about. When Call Me Anything and we are in the same room, we understand one another. Absolutely. No discussion possible. So that's so immensely cool. So and she Joe's then sort of like my sister. and and this is true. And it is so funny. But at some point there was a picture, and I think it was of Cheeky Joe and me. And because people knew that the three of us were in Chicago together, Call Me Anything got a message about, oh, your two moms look so cool. I was like, but I'm not into, but people always seem to think so. Yes, you both do, and she always corrects me when I'm wrong to you. Yeah, that's, if I want to be right, then I do know that Call Me Anything usually listens in a lot of times in the background, and she will defend me. And likewise, I will defend her too. But like I said, Cheeky Joe and I are like sisters. So it's, and sisters fight every now and then, and we hug most of the time. And so, no, we are not girlfriend or whatever you want to. Yeah, and she says, I remember that. Oh my God, it was so funny when she got that message. Yeah, it is. And I know that a lot of people literally think that I'm either bisexual or I'm a lesbian, and I'm neither. I know a lot of people who are, and they don't think they are, but they expect me to be one. And I know why it is, because I dress usually like a man does, and not like, I'm not very ladylike. So I am called Lady Lexy, which is linked to Lexy. A lot of people think that Lex is a boy's name. It comes from Alexandra, actually. So, and of course, Alexander is a boy's name. Alexandra is the female version of it. But I've never been someone to walk in skirts and all those kind of things. I rarely do it. And I absolutely, totally cannot walk on heels. It's totally not done. When I got married, I didn't walk in heels. As a matter of fact, we got married with my feet in the sand. Well, and that's what I wanted. So we were on an island. we were uh, they got us there by gondola Yeah, it was quite nice. Anyway, so no, I'm not female like I apparently I'm in between uh, a metalhead. Sometimes people call me a biker, and then I can also be a skater. And when I grew up, everybody said, "You walk like someone who works on a boat." Well, there you go. Now let's see what Chicky Joe says. Um, she always defends you. She loves you. Well, that's likewise. I love all of you. So I think Chicky Joe is having a good time right now. you know, it's one of the things that I talked about when it came to change this week was also change that you were not waiting on. So one of the things that I talked about, which I experienced, was all of a sudden I was drawn back to the past because I had to get those codes, and then I had to become part of a professional organization again. And I was like, I thought the days as therapist were way behind me, and I was just purely focusing on being a coach and someone guiding others. Of course, you can't take the therapist out of me, but still. And then all of a sudden I needed to upload everything again, become part of a professional organization. And I was like, am I going to get back to the past, or how does this work? Now for Chicky Joe, she had a different kind of experience. So a couple of years ago, during COVID, she lost her husband. So when we talk about change, this is really an involuntary change. I mean, if all of a sudden, and I think the total time was like 2 weeks, and then you have to deal without your spouse. You haven't thought about, okay, how am I going to do the things that you have been doing all the time? So it's about doing tasks that your better half used to do, and then all of a sudden you have to do it. But if you didn't talk about it, then okay, what's there? What was the other one planning on doing? But also you're grieving, and then all of a sudden then you need to change, you need to adapt quickly, learn new things. And the question of course is, can you adapt at such a moment? Because, well, like I said, you want to grieve, and especially when you're losing someone in a short amount of time, that's traumatic at best. And the way that she lost her husband is, it's, well, I wouldn't wish this on anyone, but let's put it this way: the way that they had to say goodbye, she was the only one who could say goodbye. Her children couldn't say goodbye to her father. She couldn't stay there till the end. They both knew it was the end, but still, it was COVID. So I always say she was in a spacesuit, all dressed up, and she was only allowed like 10 minutes. But then life went on. And how do you deal with that change when you didn't ask for it? You didn't anticipate that it was going to happen, but all of a sudden you do need to adapt. And that's one of the hardest things when it comes to change. And then all the things that I've been talking about, when we're talking about dreams and goals, of course, this was not a dream and a goal that anyone had in mind. No one wants to lose their partner and have that as a dream or a goal. So suddenly it's about switching. It's about, but what do you want the future to look like now? And if we look at what has happened, can you see any positivity in it? Were there also positive aspects that came out of it? Now, one of the things that Cheeky Joe started doing because of Call Me Anything was she set up this page. So she's a huge Jason Begay fan. He's the actor in Chicago PD. He plays Sergeant Hank Voight. And at some point, I had started watching Chicago Fire. I had been binge watching it because I had lost one of my clients. So that was one of the change when we talk about loss, actually, it was loss of her partner, and for me, it was loss of my one of my clients that brought us together. And I had to learn to deal with that loss, just like she is still learning to deal with her loss. And I started binge watching Chicago Fire, and the one thing that I learned from it was about responsibility, and that I wasn't responsible for the choice that my client had made. Needless to say, though, that for me it was, I want to say devastating, but I don't know if that's the good word. I was immensely sad because I saw the potential in her, and she didn't see it. It was during COVID. There we go again. COVID was a hard time for a lot of people. Actually, both Chica Joe and I, we've lost our moms during COVID, not because of COVID, but it was during COVID. And being able to do things normally and saying goodbye normally, well, there was no such thing as normal around that time. But getting back to the positive things, for me, what was positive was I started to look, here's that guy, because he has two phases. In Chicago Fire, he was the bad guy, and in Chicago PD, he was the good guy. So how did that work? And I wanted to see if he was like that in real life too. Like, can he be like this on one in at one moment and like that at the other moment? So I wanted to understand that, and so I found her Instagram page, and she posted a lot of stuff, and I was reading between the lines. Well, actually, I was reading the lines that she put out there next to the pictures, and then I reached out to her, and that's how we got to meet. And would she still have had her husband, we wouldn't have met, because she started talking about Jason because of the grief and needing something to do. So her daughter actually encouraged her, go do it, which I think is one of the best things she ever did. And well, I don't know if you ever saw the work of Cheeky Joe, but she is amazing when it comes to all these collages. So she takes pictures, and then she mixes them in one new picture, sort of like a poster. And sometimes there is certain text with it, but the way it's being made and put together, it's so very creative. And I'm like, you could sell those posters. Of course, she's not in charge of Chicago PD, but they are good. They're really good. So I love watching what she's coming up with every time. And so we created a friendship because of it. And I tend to think of it as something positive that came out of it. So she's saying, yes, that page got me to meet you. I love my edits. They really helped me so much. Yes. And that's the thing. They are amazing. And it's so nice to actually see the progress that she's been making, going through, to see the new things that she started adding to it. It's yeah. And because of it, we went to Chicago together, and we got to see Chicago PD recording, and we also saw Chicago Fire recording. And of course, we saw Jason Begay, and we waved at him from a distance, and we were like, we want to talk to you, but we couldn't. But fortunately, we did. We were able to talk to the other actors, and some of them are so immensely cute. So, yeah, so she said, losing hubby got us so close together. You helped me with my confidence so much. And that's the thing. For me, when I talk about certain things, it's nice to, and that's why I love when Cheeky Joe is there. You could see it instantly in my reaction, because I know so much about her. She knows so much about me. And we I know by now what I can share and what I cannot share, or I will ask her, can I share it? And even when you cannot see her on the show, her presence is absolutely there. So, on one hand, I'm talking about my topic, there's a certain teaching going on, but on the other hand, there she is. And we or I can use examples for her life from her life, but also things that we did together. And one of the things that was really special was that moment that she said, I want to be at the Sears Tower. I want to go all the way to the top. I was like, okay, well, if you want that, let's go do it. So we did. And she, what I didn't realize was she's afraid of heights. Now, I used to be afraid of heights until I discovered that if I hold on to something, that's completely gone. It's the mere fact that I cannot hold on to something which makes me hesitant. But when I know I'm in a good place, then nothing to worry about. So we went there, up there all the way, and then it's glass walls, glass ceiling, glass floor. So you go into some sort of glass cubicle, and then you have this amazing view over Chicago. And at that moment, I reached out my arm so she could use it as a railing, as to hold on to lean on. And that's how I got her to come into that cubicle, because all of a sudden she had something to hold on to. And the picture that was made when we were standing there with the background of Chicago behind us, that's such a special one, because we at that moment are so much in tune. We are there to support one another and enjoy the view. And so it's a very special moment. And whenever you see that picture, there is a certain vibe to it. What I also love about it is it's kind of funny because you see the two of us, and there I am, dark brown eyes, and she's got the prettiest light blue eyes. She's got amazing eyes. I cannot say anything else. So what is she saying? Oh my God, it was the best ever seeing them all. Yeah, it was. It was kind of cool. So we've seen staff from or the crew from Chicago Fire, but also Chicago PD, and we saw the actual crew. And whenever there is another scam artist out there, hey, how are you, love? And how are you doing? And nice to meet you, and tell me something about yourself. I'm like, well, we've met Lucci, we've met the crew, we've met the PA, and you are going to tell me that you suddenly are suffering with a mild form of dementia. They do say that actually. Or you don't know who I am. No, wrong answer, because we actually have a nickname. We are the Meerkats. So she says, you're my rock. And she's laughing. That was so scary going up the tower. Good job you grabbed my arm. Well, actually, I held out my arm so you could grab mine, because I would never have done it. Yeah. So, and it's about, I, when you ask me what I do, it's about neurodivergence. So it's a typical thing apparently for neurodivergence, to see more and to catch on more than the neurotypical people do. And I've wondered about that a lot. I remember during lunch break, I would walk past the cash register, the lady behind it. I looked at her and I said, oh my God, you look so tired. What's going on? And she told me. And then I said to the others, didn't you see that? Didn't you want to know what was going on? But no, all they wanted to do was pay for their food and then go sit down. But the fact that we actually notice all these things have to do with, and that's why we often deal with sensory overload. There are so many little clues we pick up on. And for me, when Chica Joe was there, it just made sense to help her out. It's, one of those things, but it was very, very special. We had a great time together, and we never had met before. We had talked on the phone, and then we hang out for 3 weeks, 4 weeks together. That was kind of fun. So, and that's why I said she's like a sister for me. So being told told that we are the two moms of her daughter and that we look so cute together, yeah, that was kind of funny. Absolutely. I think that's the one that goes into history with us. Anyway, so getting back to the change challenge, um, I can tell you a lot more of what's in there, but I think I've talked about most things already. And one of the things that stood out for me was when it comes to your dreams and your goals, it's so important to visualize the outcome, seeing it happen. And if you don't know how, then talk to someone or study someone who is your role model who has already done it, been there, done that. And actually, that could also be the future version of you. And that always sounds a little like, really? The future version of me? But the funny thing is at least when I talk to the future version of me, uh, she is like a no nonsense kind of girl. It's like, well, just go do it. Otherwise, if you don't take action, nothing's going to happen anyway. So that's it's kind of hilarious, if I may say so. There's no easy way out when I talk to my future self. Let's put it that way. And but it's also about, well, this is about the brain and how our brain looks at certain things. When we hear certain things growing up, things that our parents tell us, or maybe the kids in school or the teachers, we tend to make those opinions ours. We incorporate them in ourselves. We don't do it on a conscious level, but we do it. And at some point, when they don't say it anymore, we keep repeating it ourselves. So we basically start to believe it. Now, that also works the other way around. But when we try to do it on a conscious level, instead of having said it to ourselves like 1,000 times or thousands of times, we say it one time, maybe two times, maybe three, and then we stop it. And we're like, why is there no change? Well, three times, thousands of times, makes a little bit of a difference. So when you know that, you can actually say to yourself, okay, so the way that I actually learned how not to do certain things, I can also use that on a conscious level to reprogram myself by saying certain things. So I talked about sentences, short and sweet sentences, which are about, okay, this is the future goal. This is taking the future into the here and now and talking about how much of a success this is. And because of it, I've been working on some stuff myself. So the things that I talked about, I don't know if I can, yes, here it is. Um, I've got an example right here. I am also doing that myself, but I'm doing it with not so much with more accuracy, but I'm doing it more often and, well, way more on a conscious level. So when I talked about getting a little notebook dedicated to your dreams, well, actually, I didn't talk about it. It starts with a little notebook dedicated to your dreams and your goals. So you want to take something that you can take with you, preferably have the size of this one. And then here is that worksheet I was talking about, which is very visual, which is about going from negative to positive and actually putting smileys on there, doing other stuff, putting it on your heart at some point. Um, if you sign up for the Change Challenge, you get it. So you might want to do it. Anyway, it's on here so you can unfold it and look at it. And then you can write things down here. So here you can put down your doubts. And then on here, you can start to change them from negative to positive. So this sheet will help you to know what you need to focus on when it comes to words, when it comes to disbelief. And when we talk about repetition, well, fake it until you make it. It's about saying it so often that you actually start to take action because you cannot get around it anymore. So in the back, there's a little pouch here, which is kind of cool. In it are a few pieces of paper, and each of them holds a dream or a goal. So this one is actually about the change challenge and what I had to do and still have to do. This one is about the Chicago trip. So my goal is in September to have people come over, form a group. It would be nice, although I'm not going to say it's limited to, but one of the goals that I have is that there's actually a group of small business owners who don't have enough people to actually hire someone from HR, but they do need to learn how to communicate with their staff on a regular basis, and also making sure that they make them enthusiastic about what they're doing. So it's not just about doing their normal tasks, but also understanding why they do it, making sure they do it the way that you want to, and then also challenging them to do something they are really good at because they have their own specific skills. So, and especially when we talk about IT, neurodivergence and IT, they like each other very well. So this is about the trip. I think there are two which are related to the trip. Yeah. And this is about the change challenge. So yes, I not only have been teaching about it, I believe in talk the talk, walk the walk. So that's why I also apply those things myself. Now, since I didn't get around to going live on social media about this, I am going to continue on with this challenge. So the opt-in page is already there. If you want to do it, then it's ladylexy.com. Sign up for change. So ladylexy.com/sign up for change. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to make sure that the course is going to look all nice the way that I picture it in my mind. And then with the homework that I talked about, including some worksheets, maybe some meditations in there. So it's an ongoing project, which for me is the beginning of also leading to the trip. And well, basically you can see it as some sort of resort, but it's not literally like a resort or retreat. I want people to come over to a certain location, then we meet up at a hotel, and then from there on there are assignments, and we also do a lot of sightseeing and having fun. But the whole idea is to gather a group of people who are going to keep one another accountable. So And why those people? Because I believe when it comes to speaking up, speaking out, that when we talk to managers or business owners, when they change their way of thinking and communicating, and they look at their employees differently, then it has an impact both on the the manager or the business owner. It has an effect on a number of those employees, and each of them, of course, usually have a spouse, usually have a family with children. They do have friends. So when it comes to creating a ripple effect, it goes way quicker than just working with one person at a time. Besides that, I still believe, being a neurodivergent, that there is a lot of improvement to be made when it comes to understanding the people that you are working with. Instead of, I've explained it once, why don't they understand it? Well, maybe you have to say it again. Well, I already said it, so what's so difficult? Well, that's not the way it works. And if I can change that, that's going to be so much better working environment for so many people. And that's also part of my dream, to have that one changed. And that dream has been an ongoing dream for a long while now. Now, having said so, the upcoming week is going to be dedicated to behind the scene footage for the Change Challenge, so people can actually see it. If people subscribe, they are capable of watching it like 5 days. So each day is there like 2 or 3 days, 5 days in total. So it's going to be there like for 8 days. And if you want to look at it longer, then of course you can buy the whole thing. And this project, it's so funny. Well, no, it's not funny. It's a very serious thing, actually, if you think about it. But talking about change, and then talking about what this change challenge means to me, that's very powerful and very meaningful to me. Like I said, talk the talk, walk the walk. I believe that when I teach about something, when I talk about something, that it's also important that I show people how it works. Well, that's it for now. Like I said, if you want to join the challenge, just go to ladylexy.com, sign up for change. And if you are interested in the trip, which hopefully is going to be in September, and maybe you are a local, I don't know, maybe you come from abroad, but if you're interested, or you know people who are interested, or you're one of those people who say, yeah, I'm one of those people who cannot afford an HR employee, an HR manager, but I do need to change some things, and I would love to be part of a group that keeps one another accountable, then please reach out to me so we can talk about it. And, you know, it would make, I was going to say it would make my day, but this is not about making my day. This is about way more. If I can start up that change and then create that ripple effect, oh my God, how amazing would that be? So I guess that's what I want to leave you with the question, what is it that you need when it comes to changing? And again, if you want to be part of the change challenge, go to ladylexy.com slash
If you want to
sign
see
up for
more
change.
videos related to change, go there, click there. Yes, right there.